Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're talking about the Old World. This video is sponsored by the Game Bunker. So quite a few years ago now, Games Workshop destroyed the Old World and moved into the Age of Sigmar. And for quite a while, the Old World was completely gone and got no attention. But now, after community pushback and quite a few years, Games Workshop has been putting more and more effort into the Old World in an attempt to save it for the community and somehow make it a viable game and viable model range. But now with their attention divided and Sigmar becoming more and more popular, people are legitimately questioning whether or not this was a good decision. After years of rumors, Games Workshop earlier this year launched the Grand Armies of Cathay, and probably some of, if not the best models that they have ever released for the Old World. Initially, there was quite a bit of excitement. Sales were finally picking up for the first time, but it appears that the interest and excitement has tapered off. And the real question is, can Games Workshop save the Old World with new models? Part of the issue that I have with the Old World is every time the new models would come out for the Old World, they would basically just be a couple of resin characters, and then just a big box of old miniatures that just didn't hold up relative to the new stuff. And while I do like that the old stuff was coming back for the people out there that wanted it for nostalgic reasons or to collect stuff that they were missing from their current collections and have an opportunity to fill them out at a relatively reasonable price as opposed to third market prices, the models just don't land the same. But the Cathay range was completely brand new and all in plastic, and I felt like that was the first legitimate attempt Games Workshop had made at making the Old World viable again. With the new edition and new models, I really question whether or not Games Workshop can make the Old World viable again without dedicating too much of its time and effort to a game that just really isn't selling. But now we have another brand new release on the heels of Cathay, and it's clear that Games Workshop is making a legitimate attempt to save the Old World for the community and hoping to actually make it profitable and viable as a business decision. So let's take a look at the new Marauders. Bring chaos to the Old World with a horde of rampaging marauders. Chaos casts a long shadow over the Old World, and the northern coast of the Empire are constantly under threat from the marauders and barbarians from the frozen wastes beyond the seas. Many tribes gather there, worshipping aspects of chaos gods as totemic animals, carving out a brutal life in the harsh environments and casting their eyes beyond their shores in jealousy. Whether they pledge themselves to the bloody hound, carrion crow, slithering serpent, or fell raptor, these tribes are unfulfilled in purpose, and as the Marauders of Chaos step foot abroad a new campaign and territory, they have one promise: to burn the wasteland to ashes. Alright, so we have the Chaos Marauders Army Reinforcement Set. The armor-clad legions of the Chaos Warriors are soon to be reinforced by a horde of marauders who style themselves in leathers and furs, lest their ferociousness be shackled by iron. The Chaos Marauders Army Reinforcement Set is a way to add a shot of barbarian rage into your existing Warriors of Chaos army, or create an entirely new raiding party. It contains 50 new miniatures, a whopping 40 Chaos Marauders, and 10 Marauder Horsemen. Life in the frozen wastes of Norsca is harsh, and it takes people of a hardy stock not just to survive, but to thrive. Constant battles rage between the tribes, whose worship of the mercurial chaos gods and desire to expand their territories often leads them into conflicts that thin the herd even further. So we have 50 brand new miniatures coming out for Warhammer the Old World to reinforce your Chaos warbands, or create a new army composing entirely of Chaos Marauders. And I gotta say, these models look really cool. We've got 2 stacks of 5 Marauder Horsemen, and then we've got 4 units of 10 Marauders on foot. But just like the Cathay, I legitimately wonder if these models would be better served in Age of Sigmar, or honestly, a compromise. New rules for Cathay and the Marauders in the Old World, and then also new rules for them as well in Age of Sigmar. But when they brought back the Old World, they divided up Warhammer the Old World and Age of Sigmar, made it clear that they didn't want people using the same models or the same armies in both games. And honestly, I think this has substantially hurt them. I think Cathay sales would probably be through the roof if you could use them in Age of Sigmar, and I think that's probably the case as well for these Chaos Marauders. So rather than completely divide the two games and make you choose one or the other, I think they should have let you use all of the models dual purpose between Age of Sigmar and Warhammer the Old World. They wouldn't be able to specifically track the sales and tell what people are buying them for, but realistically, they're a model company. They say it over and over again, and I think that's much more important. They did the same thing with Horus Heresy and Warhammer 40k. With the new release of Warhammer the Horus Heresy, initially you could use the datasheets and models in both games, and then eventually they decided not to let you use the new models in 40k, and Horus Heresy sales fell off a cliff. And it seems like they're repeating the same mistake as well with Old World and Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I think rather than being focused on which games the models are selling for, they should just be focused on selling as many models as possible and let the dice fall where they will. Now a quick word from today's sponsor, Game Bunker. Game Bunker carries a full range of Games Workshop products, including miniatures, terrain, paint, tools, and more. Game Bunker offers 15% off MSRP for most Games Workshop products with the discount code WHMS. Receive free shipping in the continental United States on orders over $145. Online orders ship out within 24 hours. Game Bunker is a veteran-owned business. Use affiliate link below, enter discount code WHMS to save 15% on most items at checkout. For fast, friendly service with a discount on your favorite tabletop wargaming purchases, visit GameBunker.net and let them know that Warhammer Man sent you. What remains are silent, brutal warrior tribes, whose leaders are influenced by the dark gods whispering in their ears. The peasant masses who live in Bretonnia and the Empire may not live in the lap of luxury, but the Marauders are on their way to ensure that little comfort they have is stolen away from them. Alright, so here we can see a 20 stack of Marauders on foot, and then we've got a couple of the individual ones, the champion, the musician, and then the standard bearer. And I gotta say, the detail on these is absolutely amazing. They look phenomenal, they fit in perfectly with the Chaos Warriors, but rather than the heavy metallic armor, they have much more like leathers and furs, and they look freaking sweet. The brand new plastic kit brings these warrior tribes to life in the form of muscular barbarians clad in fabrics, pelts, and chainmail. Every miniature has a choice of 2 heads, and their shields and hand weapons are interchangeable, so you'll be able to build a variety of units. While the taint of chaos doesn't affect their outward appearance, some recognizable helmets and a range of trinkets and embellishments show how they worship the ruinous powers in their own ways. Each set of 20 can be made into 2 units of 10, each with the full command options. And you have enough weapon options to outfit your regiments with either hand weapons and shields, great weapons, or flails. Though a Marauder's lot in life is largely miserable, the ruinous powers don't go so far as to demand their servants footslog everywhere. And the warrior tribes are well practiced in raising powerful, if ill-tempered, steeds that are riding into battle. Marauder horsemen are often the first wave of offense when the tribes find their foes, crashing headlong into enemy ranks with heavy spears and flails. So here we can see a 5 stack of the Marauder horsemen, and once again the horses look awesome, the riders look amazing, definitely a big fan of these. The set of 10 Marauder horsemen in the box can be built as 2 units of 5, each with their own command group of champions, musician, and standard bearer. Just like the regular Marauders, they sneer atop from their powerful steeds. Each horseman has a choice of 2 heads. And again, here we can see some of the individual models. We have the actual command models for the unit, we have variants for the weapons, and then also the heads. And these are freaking awesome. And to tell you the truth, I would definitely buy these if they were viable in Age of Sigmar. But because they're in the old world, the only way I'm going to buy them is if I'm going to be proxying them as something else in Age of Sigmar. And I think realistically, just like with the Cathay, all they had to do to make these dual kits was release some separate rules for Age of Sigmar and Warhammer the Old World, and then maybe just include the variable bases. So you get the square bases in the box if you're going to use them in Warhammer the Old World. You got the round bases if you're going to use them in Age of Sigmar. But regardless of whether or not you think this is a good idea or Games Workshop likes it, sales would be substantially higher. Alright, and then we had the rules, the raising of Wasterland for Warhammer the Old World. Alongside rules for the Marauders, this new softback supplement goes into detail about the warrior tribes of Norska, the 4 primordial spirits and how they worship them, and Friedel the Chainmaker's invasion of the Wasterland. New rules for the 4 cults of chaos, chaotic traits, a lore for Shadowlands, plus new artifacts of the Shadowlands give you everything you need to represent a ferocious army of tribesmen enthralled to the chaos gods. Finally, a Path to Glory campaign lets you take 500 points of an army on the warpath, growing them in size and strength as you play, accompanied by 3 new scenarios themed around the Marauders. You'll need Arcane Journal, the War of Cetra's Fury for the campaign, and 3 Battle March size scenarios, and Ravening Hordes for the main Warriors of Chaos army rules. With Chaos rampaging abroad, make sure to keep up to date with the latest happenings in Warhammer the Old World by checking in on Warhammer Community in the coming months. So yeah, like Games Workshop typically does, absolutely awesome new models, amazing kits. But are they making a mistake by dividing their games, not allowing people to use the models in multiple games? Because there's so much upside if you're able to dual purpose these models. You could buy the kit for either game. The only thing that really needs to change is the actual bases themselves. And then of course you need rules for both games. But sales would definitely increase. More likely than not, some of the people that were buying them for the old world would get roped into Warhammer Age of Sigmar and vice versa. And games like 40k and 30k where the bases are interchangeable or some of the vehicles aren't even on bases, the only real downside is sure, people are going to be dual purposing some of their model kits, but all it's going to do is get them playing 2 games instead of 1 and likely rope them in to buy some other models to fill out their army for the other game. So let me know if you think that this is going to save Warhammer the Old World, if this is a good business decision or a good decision for the community. Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. And as always, special thanks to the Game Bunker for sponsoring the channel, Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I absolutely love these Chaos Marauders, but I'm just not sure I'm going to be picking them up. And I'm out of here.